that whisper in your ear that says, hey, like, everything's okay. But now it's like, oh my gosh, like everything's not okay and my life is horrible. And it's just like you see, all this. It was incredibly dark.
Well, and life is really, really hard. So when you're living as like an atheist, you don't know what's next. Whereas with Christians, we have the hope. We believe the hope that things are going to get better, which makes us more optimistic.
Hello, this is Andrea from OurDayDream, back again with another awesome guest. His name is Joel Jackson. He is the director and leading actor of the movie Rock for Jesus. He also is a singer and a musician, possibly a writer. Let's find out. So without further ado, here is Joel.
There, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi.
There you are.
Sorry, I tried to join with the phone audio, but it kept putting it on hold when I went to FaceTime. So I'm on my computer now. So
it works better.
Yeah, a little bit.
You got Southern accent.
Yeah. So where are you from? Where?
Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm from I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, technically. So yeah, I got a bit of an accent. So
I love that.
Oh man.
They say that people from Pittsburgh have their own accent. It's different.
So I actually grew up it sounds terrible. I don't remember, but we lived in the Northeast, my family, for like 10 years from when I was like 5 to 15. So I remember the accents and me having an accent and then coming to the South and then it just changed. So yeah. Yeah. So
how did you really want to be introduced? I did introduce you already. I just want to make sure that I'm introducing you properly. I didn't want to mess that up.
No, I mean, however, I just like I've done that movie and I'm doing music now, and that's kind of just the Christian music stuff. So really, I mean, I'm not
lead singer, musician.
Yeah.
Because possibly songwriter, or you are.
No. So I do all that. So the main thing on that like across all my social media that I say is God saved me from suicide, and now I sing songs for Him. So I lead worship. So mainly just Christian music and worship leader, and then occasionally I make movies. So yeah.
But can you tell me about your testimony? I mean, it's apparent if we've seen your movie, because I did watch that a couple weeks, or was it like a week and a half ago? So it's apparent like a little bit, but if anybody had never seen your movie, can you like tell us your testimony?
Yeah, totally. So 10 years ago, I was in my early 20s and I was in a pretty not like a famous Christian band, but we were doing a ton of stuff locally. We were about to sign a deal and do a bunch of stuff in Nashville. And it looked like I had everything together. Essentially, I had, friends, I had a relationship that looked like it was headed towards marriage. And I was telling people about Jesus all the time. And then this suicidal stuff started to creep in, because essentially I lost my friends, I lost my girlfriend. And part of the reason for that was like a lot of my friends in my circles were like kind of, I'd say, toxic in a way, even though they were Christian circles, totally Christians, everybody was a Christian. And so I ended up losing everything. I lost the band, and then I got these suicidal thoughts. And when that happened, and it didn't go away, I basically said, okay, God's not real. I don't believe in any of this God stuff because of the horrible things that I feel. And even if God is real, I'm feeling what I think feels like hell. And so I'm like, I don't need God. And so I completely walked away from Christianity for about 3 years. But what's weird is I was actually making that movie about my story kind of while I was going through all of that. Wow. So it's really what I call it was like a doubting period, as opposed to like a very heavy doubt period, as opposed to like, well, I completely walked away from Christianity, because obviously like I made a Christian movie. And But long story short, at some point I got out of the suicidal stuff. Things started to get better. I had a preacher who kind of prayed over me, led me back to, some real faith. And then immediately went on the, do you know the band Seventh Time Down?
Yeah.
So I met those guys. Because I did video for bands or whatever, and I met them. I went on the road with them, and then their singer Mikey said he wanted to help me get back into Christian music because it had been 6 years since I'd really done any Christian music, and that's what launched what I'm doing now with all my Christian music and Spotify and YouTube. So that's a little bit of like, as far as how it relates to the movie and my testimony with that. Before that, I mean, I grew up, like, my dad was a preacher for a little bit. So like we had dysfunction in the home, but I accepted Jesus at like a super early age. So, the first dramatic stuff really didn't happen till I was in my 20s. So
I feel like, because I say this in every single podcast, I swear, but
yeah.
I was like an atheist for 17 years.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like when you're an atheist, it's like you kind of like walk around blind. It's kind of like da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like you're just trying the best that you can with what you got. And and so, but it was like whenever I was brought back to God, it's like you see with complete transparency what you do wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so difficult. It is a much more difficult walk, but it's more magical because you just don't know what really is going to happen next. But I feel like too, it's like whenever like God's really teaching me a lesson, I'm testing on it instantly.
Yeah. I think what I noticed, so I had basically it was almost 3 years to the day that I stopped believing and then started believing again. And like, I tell people now that, like, because I was a Christian up until, or I was actively in my faith up until age 26. And then there was this 3 years, and it was 3 of the darkest, like, depressing years. Because the thing is, like, I think people need Jesus to break our ego, because you take like atheism, you take and like nihilism, what it really is just like the worship of self. And so I don't know, I'm sure it exists. I don't know many atheists with successful relationships as far as with their kids and their wives. I'm sure it exists, but the problem is it's that whole thing is about self. And I know enough to know that God's not real, and it's arrogant.
Right.
And so it just breeds like narcissism, in my opinion, which Jesus in the right context is the total opposite of that, because he says to give up yourself. And so another thing I tell people when I went through that doubting period is even the girls that I dated were just some of the most selfish people I've ever dated, because I was done with the Christian thing. And I just tell people Jesus makes everyone better. It makes everything better.
I remember like the day that I became I wouldn't say the day, but like right after I became an atheist, it was like my first stressful situation I dealt with after that. I no longer had, it was like instantaneously, as soon as I was an atheist, I was holding the whole world on my shoulder. It was like, now all of a sudden, this is all my problem. Now all of a sudden, this is my whole life. This is everything about me. Like, and so it was like you were then carrying all the burden rather than having a God where it was safe with. And you lose that whisper in your ear that says, hey, like, everything's okay. But now it's like, oh my gosh, like everything's not okay. And my life is horrible. And it's just like, you see, all this, it was incredibly dark.
Well, and life is really, really hard. So when you're living as like an atheist, you don't know what's next. Whereas with Christians, we have the hope. believe the hope that things are going to get better, which makes us more optimistic.
Well, I
And-
believe something bad was definitely going to happen next. Like,
Yeah.
that was my belief system.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's what I tell people now is even if you even if you don't genuinely believe it in the moment, Jesus will he'll make your friendships better, your relationships better, because it's all about giving up yourself and just trying to give more of yourself to others. Whereas the other thing is just, it's like serve yourself. I mean, that's what's going on with the culture right now.
That
And
makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the culture right now. I mean, you just it's all about narcissism and self. And you look at the marketing and everything that's going on with TV shows and everything, all these, it's all just, it's narcissism and propping yourself up. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to fight right now, is that, because I think that's bad. And I think they're they glorify it in so many different ways, and they say that it's awesome. But the people that say that it's awesome, it's like, I've heard a lot. So a lot of, like, you take Hollywood and you take like the political spectrum. What I've learned is a lot of these journalists who go in and attack Christianity, they'll attack America in all these ways. And America has its problems, but like the ones that really, they say that most of these journalists, like, basically like alcoholics and drug addicts. And it's like, but they're the ones preaching that, everyone's evil, and the patriarchy, racism, sexism, which those things can exist, but basically shooting down that, like, America is this really horrible, evil place. But the people preaching that, their lives are an absolute mess.
Right.
That's where I'm like, where's this? Like, if the source is messed up, then how accurate is all of this? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like if there's something wrong with the way that I'm seeing the world or myself, like, I'm going to see that in my world. So I don't feel like, I feel like God brings that to me in order to look at myself, in order to look at my self concept. So if like I'm really feeling like I'm in a good place, the way I'm seeing other people and seeing myself, like, I see more good things.
Yeah. No, that's I truly believe that. And immediately when I jumped back into Christianity, my path just got brighter. Things started looking up. And
Crazy.
I tell people that this is like, I can't recommend it enough to everybody, that at least, even if you don't agree with everything in the Bible and all these things, if you just try to do the Jesus stuff, it will make your relationship with your kids better, your relationship with your wife or your husband or whatever. It makes stuff better if you truly follow it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I remember whenever I first, like, came back from atheism, like, I had so much animosity against Jesus, because I'm like, why is Jesus getting all the glory?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and God's doing everything. And then, like, the more I studied into it, like, the more I kind of understood, you know what I mean? And then it really does add that sense of connection. In prayer. It was like my prayer before I actually knew Jesus, my prayer just, like, felt like it wasn't reaching anywhere. But whenever I fully understood, I had to learn that. I had to learn that through the Bible, but also I had to reflect on, like, who is Jesus inside of me? And, how did God make me so, like, how am I like the sparkle in God's eye? Like, what is this? And so it's like, the more I understood who Jesus was, the more it seemed like my prayer actually reached somewhere, although they don't always come true, but.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's answers to questions that, like, we're never get. So when I fell away from Christianity, I started asking all these questions that, like, I don't have satisfied answers for me too. And I'm just like, that's fine, because my life is better.
Right.
With Jesus. And I can know that later. And I think sometimes Christians get obsessed with the obsession of knowledge, and I have to know all these answers.
Yeah.
But it's called faith, like, because we can't know, we just have to trust God. And so that's all I'm doing at the end of the day, is I know the world is a rough place. We've got a rough it's just rough the way things are, and it's hard. And rather than me saying, well, God, why did you do this and that? I just have to be like, look, my life is better with this, way better. This is what I'm going
Right.
to do, and I'm going to trust it. So,
Right. Right. People will say they'll be like, well, if God is so good, then why is there so much bad in the world? And I'm like, well, this isn't heaven.
yeah. Yeah.
We're not in heaven yet.
Yeah. And then I also say, well, I don't know, but trust me, this will make
Yeah.
you better. It'll make,
Yeah.
it'll
Well,
make you
I
fight with your
mean,
girlfriend less.
well, I mean, like, I got the glorious opportunity to speak with a Satanist, and I swear God set that up just perfect. And I was basically like, he had already deemed himself to hell, and I said, well, you know, God loves Satan that much, he gave him dominion over the earth. And I was like, just as much as God loves you that much, that he sat you down at a table to sit with me right now.
Yeah. 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 I would just like, if I sit down with someone like that or whoever else, I'll just, because there are situations, I think it's few and far in between where people like that can really have their stuff put together. But I think most of the time you look at the personal life and it's not going well. And
Well,
that's,
it's hurt.
and I
Yeah.
just go straight to, look, I know this sounds really stupid. This belief might seem stupid to you, but like it will fix so much if you just get
Right.
this. That's where I go from it now, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because a lot of people do think that um they do think um
yeah.
that the Bible is stupid, but yeah, if they read into it, I'm just like, but yeah, but the Bible's been around for how long now?
Yeah. Yeah. Been It's
You know,
it's been really consistent, and the fact that Jesus is still insanely famous and hasn't lost like the relevance,
right?
that says something to how Christianity helps people, I feel like. So that's just
And
one.
yeah, and it was around the world even before there was television sets and Wi-Fi and
Yeah.
Facebook and Twitter, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
so I just seen that you have a new song coming out of the darkness. What's that
Yeah.
about?
So I got involved right when I came back to Christianity. I actually got involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And I wrote a song for them because have you ever heard of the Out of the Darkness walks?
No.
Okay, so they have these walks around the country that raise millions, like tons of money for mental health care and different things, but just to
It's
basically
awesome.
prevent people from ending their own lives. And so I wrote this song called Out of the Darkness, and it's inspired by the walks. And we're actually shooting the rest of the video tonight, but basically it's just a song that is promoting what those walks do. And then also there's a suicide prevention number, 988, so we worked that number into the song somehow, and
That's
it's
good.
just to basically help people to not end their lives. Because I made a post, and it was basically just like, I believe Jesus is the answer, as is the ultimate answer to everyone's problems. But in order to hear about Jesus, they got to be here. And so that's what this song isn't necessarily completely faith-based, but it's just what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it like the official song of the foundation. And
Yeah.
so hopefully people hear that and they can call the number, they can get help. And if I can become the face of that too, that's going to lead a lot of people to Christianity potentially. And
Right.
that's the ultimate goal. But yeah, it's telling people come out of the darkness. That's all the chorus says. Or the chorus says, come out of the darkness 3 times. And then it says, it's never too late to come out of the darkness. So
Right.
that's
I feel like God works in cycles. It's like in the Bible, he speaks about, there's life and then there's death. There's time to pluck up and there's time to plant. There's time to love. There's time to hate. Like we go
yeah,
through like all these different cycles, and sometimes we're going to be brought to that point of death, where we just feel like we cannot go anymore, so that we can just break
yeah,
that off of us, that pain and hurt, sadness. So, like I always like to tell people, it's like right whenever you get to that point where you can't go no more, that's usually the point where like things start opening up and you
Yeah.
do start seeing the light, you know?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
believe that. I think so. That's what that's about. We've got a bunch of other songs that we've scheduled to release. Like we've got this Christmas song that's going to come out. So I've got them staggered. We try to put out songs about every month and a half
Yeah.
because that's ultimately I'm working towards a record deal and different things like that. But we're just really trying to build the fan base, and we're kind of taking a break from the explicitly Christian songs this month just to help promote this thing and potentially
Good.
bring Christianity into that movement, because it's not really there. It's kind of just,
Yeah.
it's a pretty, they're a fantastic movement, but it's pretty secular. And
Yeah.
I think this song could really bridge some things. So
It's like Christianity definitely feels like the minority.
yeah,
But
it's,
that's in my environment. So
no, it's, I don't think as far as the culture, I think, I don't like to throw like the politics in there, but you've kind of got like the conservative thing and the liberal thing. And the conservative thing gets tons of things wrong, but it is rooted in Christianity.
yeah.
Liberalism thing is kind of rooted in atheism. I mean, I know, or I know Catholic liberals, but most of the liberal people that I know, they are not only do they don't believe in Christianity, they do not like Christianity. That's
Right.
in the South, and we're here in the South, which is supposedly the Bible Belt. And yeah, I don't think it's a Christian nation anymore. I think we're absolutely totally secular nation. I mean,
Yeah, it's really sad.
yeah,
It's really sad. I was just talking to somebody last night about like the animosity against the people that do leave the church. And I'm like, we just need to get rid of denominations, period. Like
yeah,
Catholic needs to go down. Like, you know, like all these different names, they just need to go. It just needs to be about Jesus. That's it.
yeah. And it's, people get lost in the details. There's the little details that, in my opinion, don't matter as much as like salvation in Jesus. And that's to me where the denominations come in, because the denomination is just well, no, these people are wrong. Like that's all it is.
Yeah,
What it
it's a
says. And
confusion. Yeah, God's not the God of confusion. There's one spirit, one truth. It's
yeah,
not, 3,200 different truths.
yeah, no, because I'm very pro Christianity. I'm pro a lot of things America. I'm very conservative in so many things, but I have also grown up in this, so I see the flaws everywhere. And the church is full of just prideful ish. I mean, I just left a church about 4 months ago, and it was just such a crazy situation with the most prideful preacher I've ever come
Yeah,
across. And it's like, so when I tell people that like I'm not necessarily for the liberalism or the atheism or whatever, I'm not saying everything in the Christian world is good, because it is messy. but
yeah,
but I do think Jesus makes people better, and like this church issue we had didn't go crazy insane because you had a bunch of Christians at the end of the
yeah,
day that are trying to be like Jesus,
right.
as opposed to kind of sometimes if you ever see like city politics and like events that are just citywide, it gets lawsuits,
Needed.
it gets crazy real quick, and it's brutal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 For sure. I try to advocate because like people will be like, I don't want to go to church because they like stereotype it so much. And I'm like, I try to advocate to try to get them in the church. But I'm like, you know, we need wholesome Christians in there to balance it out. If you think that they're all evil in the church, like if
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
they're evil, come in there and say a prayer, balance out the situation a little bit. We got kids in there, they need you, you know, if you think it's
Right.
so corrupt.
Well, and for me, like Christianity is like Jesus is the car and the church is the wheels, in my opinion. And
Yeah,
if I believe you can have a relationship with Jesus outside of the church, but it's not going to go anywhere if you don't have a group of believers that are your
yeah,
friends, that you're growing close with, because that's how you grow in Christianity. And I always tell
yeah,
people when they first,
it's true.
yeah, when they're trying to grow, I'm just like, go join a church, because most Christians aren't at church.
Right.
No, there's few, like so many people are unchurched, and it's like, that's your wheels. If you're trying to get to California, you're not going to go anywhere with a wheelless
It's
car.
true. My pastor's wife one time, she said about how like um something about they'll try like Satan will try to separate the flock so he can devour the sheep. And I'm just like, that's so true.
Yeah.
Because if you go to church for an extended amount of time and just stop going, give it like a week or two, like your mind will start messing with you bad,
Yeah.
because it's harder to drop your baggage, I think, whenever you're constantly picking up more baggage. So it's like whenever I'm walking and I'm doing stuff, like there's always like something that might frustrate me. But whenever I go to church, I can say, whew, like I'm gonna let this go with you, God. And there's nothing coming back at me like poof. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and you too. It's like so I joined this church, and it was super weird with the preacher, what happened, but everybody else was super cool and they understood it. But joining this church a year and a half ago, is one of the best things I did, and it grew me so much because I now had good people in my life. I had men to look up to who were just like, they were kind, and I had small groups on Wednesday, and then we had worship practice, and it was like such a good thing. And I remember thinking like, there's no way, because when I first came back to Christianity, I didn't really get into a church until early 2021. So there was about a year and 9 months without real church involvement, and I came back to Christianity, but it was very it was like a wave.
Yeah.
And then in 2021, when I joined that church, it's just consistent ever since.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, like people grow out of that church too, you
Yep.
know, like so, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and churches are messy too. Like it's all in the Bible. You look at the Bible, like pretty much every Bible story, there's like heavy controversy, like people mess up. So when we had this situation happen at my church, I had so many people reach out and being like, please don't walk away from the faith. And I was like, guys, this is in the Bible that this is going to happen. I know God's going to use that preacher. He's going to use that church, but the situation for me was just ridiculous with what happened. And for me and myself, I need to move on to another place.
Right.
But everybody there, I was like, everyone still go to the church and have. So yeah, I think people definitely can outgrow a church situation, but I definitely don't like to leave churches. And I mean, sometimes the church is sometimes it can be really bad, but the place I left, it was, it actually addressed the situation with me helped them address a giant leadership glaring issue that they had. And I think they actually changed their leadership structures because the preacher and his wife just got reamed over what happened and how they handled it. And it's made the church better. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah.
I actually had that same thing happen to me. I went to a church for like a year and a half after atheism. And they had like way too many guest speakers in there talking judgment, like, and politics, and like that's not the place for me to like listen to that. And so, but also I don't want to advocate that either by showing my presence in there either. So I stopped going there. Like this guest speaker like offended me beyond. Like I was only 5 minutes in and I walked out the door with like 6 people that I brought with me. And it went a year and a half till like God like tugged it on my heart, like you need to go back there. So I went back there, and sure enough, the day that I chose to go back there, guess who was ministering? That same guest speaker. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. This did not happen. Yeah.
Whenever preachers, or not even preachers, just people start screaming from the stage, I start to think about the love is patient, love is kind verse. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, like how you're saying all of these things, if you really poured over the way that the Bible talks about love, I feel like you would change a little bit of your tone or your whatever. Cause I think sometimes like where I think atheism and potentially the liberalism movement breeds narcissism. I think some of the most narcissistic people can be preachers on a
Yeah.
stage because they've got that crowd. So I definitely see that sometimes,
Yeah.
while they can do that while speaking the truth, so it's kind of like,
Yeah. It's so easy to go that little bit
yeah, you
further
gotta be
that
careful.
way.
You gotta be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah. Bible even says balance.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you have a podcast, singer and drummer of One Life React podcast. Is that old one
Oh,
or is that
no.
do you do that now?
So no, so when the singer from Seventh Time Down when he decided to help me get back into Christian music before we took on my name, because now it's just Joel Jackson. I had a band name. I said I don't want it to be my name. I want it to be a band. It was called One Life, and
Yeah.
we just started we needed to build up subscribers, and we would basically, me and my drummer or whoever else, we would react to these foreign videos in some of these different countries, and we would get tons of views and
You got a
subscribers.
huge views.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
did that up until the end of 2020. That's when I stopped it. And so that, yeah, it's a little confusing for people, but whenever I tell people, you look at our current YouTube views versus past, I'm like, we didn't buy the views. Like, look at it's the reaction stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, but also that was for suicide awareness too, right?
Yeah. So
So
like I said,
it was for a good reason.
yeah, that
Yeah.
dip, when I came back to Christianity in 2019, when I talk about the wave, if I had got involved with a church, it would be less of a wave. So now I'm really focused on, the Jesus stuff. And then there's the mental health, which I throw alongside with that. But essentially in 2019 and 2020, we kind of threw the Christian stuff out for a little bit of the music.
Yeah.
And we said, we're just going to go straight mental health. So it
Yeah.
was good, but I think the music we're doing now is hitting people in the right way. I feel like so much
Yeah.
more than strictly mental health, because in my opinion, strictly mental health doesn't fix the human problem, which is that we need Jesus. So, medicine can make you not end your life, and it can technically make you not depressed, but you need a purpose. And I think you need to believe that after you die, something good is going to happen. And that's
Right.
true mental freedom. And so that's why I'm like, mental health plus Jesus. So
Right.
yeah.
What can hold you down if death can't?
Right.
I don't know, man. I was so angry the other day because I've been just going through it all year. And I'm like, God, come on, just 1 week where there's just nothing happening. I was so angry. And I was talking to my mentor, my Christian mentor friend whom I talk to whenever I'm, dealing with some things. And I told him, I said, had I not known how far God actually brought me and the works that God does do in my life, I would have dismissed him already. I was like, but I've already seen the wonders. I've already seen how far he could bring me. I've already seen the transformation that he can do and the things that he can move in. The miracles and stuff. I was like, I already seen that, so I can't unsee what I've seen, but I mean, I get angry, but at the same time, it's like, I do know that God's in it and God is love. So.
Right. No, I totally that. I agree.
It just gets so mad sometimes.
Yeah.
But at least it's like when you're an atheist, you're mad at yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like when you're a believer of God, you're just angry at the journey right now that you're in. I'm just angry at this walk that I'm walking through. But it's temporary. So
Yeah, that's the main difference, is I think when Christians can walk around with hope. Is I just remember I didn't want to walk away from Christianity. I just, at that point, after all the bad stuff, something in my brain clicked and I said, this is absolutely not the right. It's wrong. There's no God. There can't be any God. And I just remember that hopelessness of it was
Yeah,
just, it was a hopeless feeling.
yeah, you just get brought to that point.
Yeah.
And just like my mentor says, like, you're going through a death of yourself, like a rebirth. I'm like, but I did that already. He's like, well, obviously you didn't do enough of it. Obviously you kept a little bit of the old you. And I'm like, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's a process of life, and it does, like, it takes death sometimes in order to grow, and so we want to hold on to these old ways of being, and sometimes it's just not going to be fruitful for your journey.
Right.
Yeah, so we
No,
all see that
yeah.
manifest later on.
I think Jesus is very like grace filled and very gracious in so many areas. So that's one thing I tell people is I think he's really um yeah, I just think there's so much grace to be had, and because life is so hard, like it's just real,
Yeah.
like we were not put in a good situation, in my opinion. Just like
Right.
people die, we get sick, and people are sinners, and horrible things happen. So I tend to throw a lot more grace people's way when they're like, I just feel like I'm not doing good. I'm like, you're basically in hell. You're not, but like, it's
Right.
that's what
I mean,
it's what it feels like sometimes. So I'm just like, if you're not, if you feel like you're not doing well, just know that like it's pretty hard here. So I think God is going to be pretty
yeah.
forgiving, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. I would all the time say that whenever I was an atheist, because they would be like, you're gonna go to hell. And I'm like, but I'm already in hell. So like, what are you threatening me with? But I didn't really realize. And then later on, like, I learned a little bit about the Bible, and I'm just like, oh, like, God loves Satan enough to give him dominion over the earth. So yeah, well, we kind of are in hell. So like, at least there's an up. There's
Right. Right.
only
Yeah.
one way.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's just weird. I feel like when people throw the you're going to hell card to like people that aren't believers, it feels like such a power trip sometimes. And I
Yeah.
don't know if they mean to, maybe they don't mean to, but part of me is just like, I don't know. I don't know how authentic that kind of come to Jesus is, of like
No, it's
fear.
not.
Because like people, what I've learned in life is people don't respond to fear very well. They much more like, if I talk to my band and I'm like, learn these songs or quit, they're all gonna quit.
You're
Or
right.
or get fired. They're at some point they're gonna quit. And so I found
Right.
the great motivation is persuasion as opposed to fear.
Right.
Because that's why I say
Um,
this is gonna make you way better. It's going to fix your personal life. It's going to fix all of these things, as opposed to, well, if you don't, you're going to go to hell. Like, I don't. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, for real, like, being an atheist, you're already like, you're in hell. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, I know it was for me.
Yeah.
I was just like, the best thing that could happen to me is death at
Right.
that point, so
Right.
there was like, there's really, you can't even threaten an atheist with that, because they're just like, so, you know.
Yeah. No, they don't believe in it, and they think it's
Yeah.
so that's why I
Yeah.
go to the positive. I'm like, if you want,
Yeah.
because most of them are probably like personal lives. Just when you live for yourself, your personal lives don't, like, you have to give to others in order for your life to, in order for your friends and your family to thrive. And most of those people aren't doing that. It's all about self, you know.
Yeah. You have the sequel coming out for Rock for
So
Jesus.
that idea started about a month ago. And the thing is, okay, have you seen like Lord of the Rings?
A little bit of it.
Okay, well, like, do you know how there's the Lord of the Rings and then there's the Hobbit, and they're kind of like, they're they're not, it's not like a sequel per se, it just is in a different time. So this is more, now I posted that it was a sequel to kind of get people, to get people riled, or to get people talking about it, but it's way more like, we're going to be making it for like people who are never going to see the first movie. And I'm still working on like these different script ideas, but right now, what I want to do is all these things that I just talked to you about of why I think Christianity is great. I want to put that into another movie. And I think what this film is going to be is me going on tour with, like, we know this Christian illusionist guy. We know a couple other bands. So what we might do is rent like these 2 tour buses, and then that's kind of the script, is we're going around telling people that we need Jesus, they need Jesus, and different things like that.
Yeah.
Still working on this script, but it's more like, you're not going to have to have seen the first one to get this one. It's going to be more,
Right.
because this, like, those movies are based on my life, and this is going to be kind of based on what's happening right now. There's a lot of concerts happening. We're still trying to figure out if there's going to be like the suicide prevention, or if it's going to be something else is the main topic. So we don't totally
Still
know
in the
yet.
works.
Do what?
It's still in the works.
Still in the works. We're probably about a year. We're probably about 14 months away from filming it. So it's going to be a minute. But it's the first film did so well for me. And all of this Christian music I'm doing right now is based off of the launching point of that film. And so what I really want to do is make another movie where the first one, I get past the suicide and I say, okay, I don't want to end my life. And this second one is going to be all about the ministry and using my life to tell people about Jesus. So that's where the tour comes in that I think we're going to do, but it's going to be really expensive and we're going to have to find a way to do it. So
Lady at the Well experience. I feel like everybody goes through that. It's like you learn that you have the living water inside of you, and then you have to like go yell into the land like, you can be saved too.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. So in the first one, I had to basically get saved myself, and this next one is potentially about me saving. I don't know. It's just about telling people about Jesus, because there are so many amazing things. Like, I went to this concert, I played 2 songs. I wasn't even supposed to necessarily like play, but I told them I was showing up and they put me on the flyer randomly. And it was like some youth event, and they ended up baptizing like 14 kids from youth group.
Oh, that's great.
And so that's what this, like the first movie, if you notice, it wasn't really about the music. It was about nothing was going on and the band fell apart.
Yeah.
And this film is going to be all about the tour. It's only going to be what's going on, and sleeping at churches and having conversations on the roof of a church about Jesus and why people need him, those kinds of things.
I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool, but I'm going to make it. The thing is, it just sounds ridiculous for a sequel to like a movie called Rock for Jesus. So the reason I put that was to get everybody talking, because I was like, even my haters are going to be like, oh, this is stupid. But they'll talk about it.
If you think about it, it would be an extension of, because like you said, it was like you were brought to death and life.
Yeah.
Now you're going out and giving the gospel. So
yeah,
I go with it. God told you to write that for a reason.
Yeah, it's absolutely a sequel, but we're going to make sure built into the marketing is you can never see the first film and you can watch this and totally get it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's awesome. So what's happening now? Are you on any tours, anything like that? I know you're working on the
So I just I'm not on any big tours necessarily, but we've got shows basically every weekend. We're getting invited to like play different places. We've got these music videos coming out every month. I just signed a deal with, do you know what Holt International is or whatever?
I feel like I've heard that.
Yeah. So Holt, they basically raise money for like kids to get food and other overseas where they don't have any money. And so we just partnered with them. So we're going to start to get kids sponsored at our concerts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's gonna be really cool. Other than that, we're just playing shows all the time. I'm about to lead worship at this church in Ohio. That's gonna be another job that I'm doing. So I'll be there every Sunday. And really, it's writing the next movie, leading worship, and playing these shows and releasing songs. That's probably my next 2 years of life. It's gonna be just that. So yeah.
Yeah. How do people find you? If they want to help donate to your film or anything like that, or is
Yeah,
it just more sales?
if you just Google Joel Jackson Christian music, there's some other Joel Jackson who's like he's an actor or whatever, and it
I
kind of
saw that.
yeah, it's super weird. And he's actually got the credit in my movie, and I don't know how to with the Internet Movie Database. I'm trying to work on how to fix that. But if you just basically like if you go on YouTube, type in Joel Jackson, I'm the first one that pops up across everything except Google. On Google, I just tell people I'm on Spotify, I'm on TikTok, and luckily I've got enough of a following to where I'm pretty much the first thing that pops up.
Right.
Except in Google, you got to type in Google. But if you go to Google, type in Joel Jackson Christian, it's the first thing. And then if they want to see Rock for Jesus for free, it's literally on YouTube and Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just shared that out to Christian Events mailbox last week after I watched it. I love how
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was good. And I love doing this and talking about this stuff. And it was really nice to talk with you.
Yeah.
So,
All right. God bless your journey.
Yeah, you too. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Again, if you like this podcast, please hit subscribe because we have an awesome guest coming up every week and I don't want you to miss out. God bless. Love you. Have an awesome week. I'll see you next time. Bye.